shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
For a living wage.
On April 3rd, faith leaders and supporters of the $15 minimum wage held a prayer vigil at Baltimore City Hall, appealing to city leaders to at least hold a vote over a possible override of Mayor Catherine Pugh's veto of a $15 minimum wage bill.
All Holy One, who looks upon this creation and sees the promise of righteousness, justice, and peace shine forth for all of your children, help continue to inspire the brave women and men and youth of our city who have put their lives on the line to advance the causes not just of themselves but of their fellow neighbor. Almighty, give them the strength and the courage to persevere, that the fight for justice will not end in disappointment, but will meet with completion. And so we stand here today, ready to listen, to act, to keep our promises to you and to one another. And we also ask for the strength and the perseverance to hold one another accountable to the promises we make to our fellow brothers and sisters.
It's an insult to grandparents who are raising their grandchildren, who are trying desperately to put fuel in the car so they can get their grandchildren from point A to point B. It's an insult to them to say to them that they are not worth $15 per hour.
Though the bill passed with the support of 12 council people, a veto-proof majority, since the veto, that number has dwindled.
We can't just say, well, gee, we really tried, and we couldn't get, I need 10 votes walking in here, I got 7, and I tried, and I have 7. So there's not going to be a special meeting, and so there's probably not going to be an override unless the president decides to call one. But there will be $15 in Baltimore, whatever it takes to do. Thank you.
Meanwhile, supporters from the powerful union SEIU are acknowledging missteps in backing Pugh after she campaigned on a pledge to sign the measure when it reached her desk. As reported by the Baltimore Brew, unions spent nearly $1 million supporting the mayor in a crowded primary field.
Money is important, and we certainly did plenty of money to her, both independently and in a coordinated fashion with the campaign. But one of the things that SEIU is known for is that when we support a candidate, we put boots on the ground. And so we had our members, volunteering for her every weekend. We had, 30, 40, 50, 60-person canvases that were out on the doors talking to voters about why Catherine Pugh was the best choice. And so that was based on her promises to us, and so it really amounts to a betrayal.
And so, what lessons? Talk about the lessons from this loss.
Well, I think it's difficult because it's not like she didn't have a track record. She had been in Annapolis for 12 years. She had been a relatively progressive voice on economic issues. I mean, normally I would say look at the track record. We looked at her track record. She was a friend to us. I think the lesson may be watch who a new mayor surrounds her or himself with. Because I think what happened is she got advisors around her like County Executive Jim Smith and like Legislative Director Karen Stokes, who's a Republican. She got those folks around her, so when they're in the room making the decision about signing or vetoing, there's no one in the room to hold her true to what her roots are and to who her supporters were. And the fact that one of the things she cites is the fiscal impact of the city, I guess ostensibly from having to raise city workers who aren't making $15 up to $15 an hour, without even getting into the scandal that it is that a municipal worker in this day and age would make less than $15 an hour. You have to remember that, as she says, this bill wouldn't depart from the statewide bill until 2019. So there's no fiscal impact at all in the city for 2.5 years. So for her to pretend that as a result of the school's shortfall or as a result of the consent decree, there's not the money to do this in the city, it's just a disingenuous argument. And I think it reflects poorly on her. And I think one of the mistakes they're making, I think, is that they think the best defense is a good offense. So she has this kind of, I've explained it enough already, and I'm not going to explain it anymore.
No, specifically, her spokesperson told me not to ask any more questions.
I saw that. That's a real mistake. This is about accountability for something that she said. There are ways, I wouldn't agree with them, but there are ways to couch a reversal that says, I feel awful, I know what I said, but I didn't know this, but there's none of that reticence or even, regret. It's just, this is what I did, and, you take it or leave it. Don't quit trying to be the smartest person in the class. I saw that clip. I think it's a mistake. It's a real mistake to react with such arrogance. I didn't put my hand on the Bible. It's just not the way to deal with a reversal here. I think she's getting bad advice all around.
And as far as the Fight for 15 movement and SEIU, talk about what you might do in the future
we won't.
Considering different strategies.
Absolutely, no, we won't stop. I mean, this is our international union's number one priority across this country. This doesn't stop in Baltimore City. We're going to go back to Montgomery County. We're going to pass a bill next year. We're going to go to Baltimore County. We're going to go to Howard County, and we're not going to stop in Baltimore City either. This is a matter of justice, and the folks assembled in this room are not going to take no for an answer from this mayor. We had 12 votes in that chamber for a $15 minimum wage bill. We are calling on the 12 votes in that chamber to stand up behind their convictions and not knuckle under to this mayor.
And, the next election is not going to be for another 4 years.
Yeah. 3.5 years. I'm counting the days.
3.5 years. So what is that? So how is this going to impact your strategy?
Well, I never, as the political director of SEIU, I never threaten. What I will say is that this certainly will be taken into account in 3.5 years, and that it's not helpful to her if she's running for re-election. It's not helpful to folks that seem to have flipped on us who voted for it initially. I don't make threats, we just do.
And the Democratic Party, on the state level, they tried the preemption bill.
That's right.
Now the mayor, the Democrat, has vetoed it here.
That's right.
Are you thinking, is there, there's the Working Families Party,
yes.
there's the Green Party,
right.
who all support this measure unequivocally.
Right.
Would SEIU consider supporting other candidates, not Democrats?
Well, certainly. I mean, I think we've always been open to supporting any candidate who stands with us and has a viable chance of winning. I don't think that that's going to change at all. But me personally, I'm a Democrat. I'm staying in this Democratic Party, and I'm holding it to its roots, and I'm holding it accountable. And so I can't go to another party and ask them to come with me when I haven't held the Democrats accountable. And 2017 and 2018 in Maryland is going to be about accountability within the Democratic Party. Make no mistake. 2020 also.
This is Ricara Jones, the head of the Fight for 15 movement in Baltimore.
So, we're really disappointed that we have a Democratic mayor that would veto such important legislation that's part of the Democratic platform that has so much support in Baltimore. 90% of the voters in the city support this, as well as something that she campaigned on and said that she was going to do, and, went back on her word. She broke the promise to residents of Baltimore City. So next step for us is that we know folks are not going to forget this. We also know that she's not going to be able to move this city forward if she doesn't, by forgetting about low-wage workers. So we know that our city council president, he has, he could call for the vote if he wanted to. So we're still calling on him to do that. We feel like this is the fourth quarter, and it's time for him to, show some leadership and stand with the people that he said he supported when this bill was first introduced.
Now we just talked to the political director of SEIU, who backed Pugh, spent a lot of not only money but manpower, got in the streets, and some have argued that Pugh would not have won without those endorsements and that support.
No, I absolutely agree. There are lots of union folks with the AFL-CIO is one of the largest groups of unions in the country, and a lot of those workers went out, they knocked on doors, they made phone calls, and they got people to the polls, and she broke her promise to those people. So it's just very disappointing. I'm just disgusted that we have a Democratic mayor that would do something like that.
Now, what lessons do you draw from that? Because, what else can you do except extract campaign promises?
No, absolutely. Just going forward, it's going to be difficult. We have low voter turnout engagement in Baltimore City, and I think candidates that lie to their voters, it's going to make it even worse. So we're going to have to do a lot of work to get people back engaged in politics and back engaged in what's happening in the city.
I know there's been some talk of even possibly running, candidates from the Working Families Party. There's the Green Party starting a new party outside of the Democrats, obviously Democrats do get a lot of corporate funding,
Right.
and Pugh was reciting corporate lobbying points, like talking
Absolutely.
points that have been recited all over the country and have just proven to be false time and time again.
Absolutely. There's so much research to the contrary of the points that she was making. It was like listening to a press conference of a right-wing conservative. It was very sad, and especially when we've reached out, advocates have reached out multiple times for a meeting with the mayor, and we have not, to this point, even had a meeting to sit down with her to discuss any of this yet.
And so would you consider supporting candidates outside the Democratic Party?
I mean, absolutely. I think we don't have permanent friends. We don't have permanent interests. So therefore, like whatever party that person is with, then I think we're going to support the people who are going to support us.
Okay, thank you. So, can you talk a little bit about, obviously, looks like time is running out for this fight, but what other initiatives is Fight for 15 going to be working on? The need is still there.
Yeah, I mean, the need is also, it's strong. I know there's an effort at the state level that we're going to be very supportive of. That we're also going to, go try to do this effort in other counties. There's Baltimore County, there's Prince George's County. The effort at Montgomery County we think is still alive and still has a chance. So we're not, I think the fight in Baltimore is delayed, but we're going to keep working in other places to get this to happen.
We also talked to several council people, starting with Zeke Cohen.
Look, we can't keep talking about crime and violence in our city without connecting it with poverty, of which we have a great deal. And wages are part of that picture. And so when we said we were going to fight for 15, that we were going to raise the minimum wage for people in Baltimore, we meant it. And that's why I want to see a vote. That's why I want people to stand up or sit down, but to at least be on record as voting for or against raising the minimum wage. Because I think that working poor people in our city have waited long enough for this to happen. We had a political revolution last year where we had 8 out of our 14 council seats turn over. We had a new mayor. Folks want to see something different, and that's what our council is here to do, and I will proudly continue to fight for 15.
So I still support it. We don't have the votes, unfortunately, so I don't think there's going to be an override today. I think we just got to find other ways to help working families for the time being, whether that's through strengthening apprenticeship programs, trying to close the school budget. I mean, there's a lot of other things that we can work on and will work on. It's very disappointing, obviously, but I'm still with the campaign, still with the fight, and hopefully we'll be able to revisit this in future years.
Go to therealnews.com for all of our coverage of the Fight for 15 movement in Baltimore and beyond. This is Jessel Noor.